spend 15 minutes. I'm gonna get a bite out of this.
If I could have your attention, please. It's the 6 o'clock hour, and I'd like at this time to call the meeting of the Gilmer County Board of Education to order. Ms. Hurley, Misty Pritt,
Here.
Carl Harmon,
Here.
Tom Ratliff,
Here.
all here and accounted for. At this time, Tom Ratliff's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 on our agenda, reports, discussion, follow-up. Dr. Armour, Gilmer Calhoun Career Center.
Okay. Well, the minutes are in the packet, and as usual, they're self-explanatory, and everything is presented with absolute clarity and transparency. So I'm just going to hit on a few things that aren't in that report. We had the election of the officers. Mr. Woodward, he is the new superintendent in Calhoun County, was elected as president, and Mr. Devano was elected the vice president. And again, the subject came up about these two gentlemen going to meet to discuss a strategy for elevating the work teams scores. So we ought to be hearing from them pretty soon about what they've come up with. A problem that they have, I like the word problem, I like the word challenge. It's a big challenge. They still can't recruit a remedial math teacher. They've advertised and advertised, and it was discussed how a procedure they can use just to keep the advertisement open, hopefully eventually attract somebody. One of the interesting aspects of going down this last time, I got to speak with the individual who was going to do the remedial English and reading. And it's phenomenal what this individual's taken on. As you know, there are 8 or 9 technical programs down there. Welding and health and food services and on and on and on. What this lady is doing, and she's going to be working harder than the students, say for the welding class, all the instructional material she's going to use is going to pertain to welding. If it is food services, everything she's going to talk about, food service, and on and on and on. So it's really a phenomenal assignment she's taken on herself. And it shows you what highly motivated people are capable of doing. It's Mrs. Evans who has that job. Okay, so that's about all. And it looks like they're making progress. One of the challenges down there is getting that lift for the automotive department. It looks like they're going to be able to get that lift situation taken care of. So that's all I have on that, unless someone has a question about what's in the...
I noted on those minutes that the guidance counselor, Mrs. Luciter, I believe,
Yes,
had left,
she did.
and they were going to replace that position or reconfigure
Sure.
the position with an assistant director.
Mhm.
Is there a guidance counselor remaining at Pierce there?
I can't answer that question. They'll have to do something to have a guidance counselor. And how they do it, how they configure it, I don't know precisely. But there will
To
be
my
some.
knowledge, there isn't.
Yeah.
I know there are 2 at the high school.
There isn't.
Excuse me, Mrs. Stark.
No, there isn't one.
But there are 2 at the high school. However, as you well know, the high
Yeah.
schools are poorly
Yeah.
set up to handle vocation.
Well, it's my understanding in the discussions, they're going to try to do something to fill that void. Maybe they can't, I don't know, but that's the intent. But when it comes to recruiting people here, there's a tremendous challenge, particularly for fields that there are a lot of job opportunities. So, good intentions, but whether we carry through with it, any other
I
questions?
think, Dr. Armour, that is a problem in many counties, including some of the more progressive counties where the economy's better, there are a lot of positions being filled by short-term and long-term substitutes.
May I say one more thing? You triggered a thought. It was brought out down there about the assistants from Glenville State College and getting new graduates from there. And I think it was Mr. Woodward brought out the fact, this last graduating class, there wasn't one person graduating who was qualified to teach math from the college. So there's an opportunity for the college to start training math teachers.
Another, just a comment, I had spoken with Mrs. Evans over the weekend, and she is elated about that project down there. She cannot wait to jump both feet into it. She's excited and she's energized by it. She's already talking about plans
Yeah.
that she's got with different programs.
Yeah.
And she really plans to put on one big presentation about what she's doing, crossing curriculums down there at the Career Center and integrating the
Yeah.
English. She's really excited about that.
That's an example. When we catch someone doing something good and right, they ought to get some
Pat on the back.
special attention for it.
Really excited.
Okay, recess 7, we have not had the September meeting of recess 7. That will occur this Thursday, I believe, so I have no report.
May I say something to that? I was rather discouraged to come back from the training in Charleston this weekend from the School Board Association to find out that there was a plan for RISA to possibly handle payroll for the smaller counties. That in and of itself, having an outside entity doesn't necessarily disturb me, but just the fact that there had been no full mention of it. And I was wondering why, surely that's been discussed with RISA prior to this.
No, that is coming out of the state board. They formed those committees when we had that audit, and one of the audits, the governance audit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mostly with business people, and one board member, Tom Campbell's on it,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple superintendents, and they
Right.
came up, 3 months ago, they came up with all these recommendations, and RISA was top of the line to filter everything down to the local levels and come through the RISAs. The last report that I just read takes all that out, and somehow they want to do away with all regional councils, with the board members and superintendents, and form a committee that deals with business people that'll take care of the RISAs and stuff like that, and one of it is to take care of the finances. It wasn't small counties, it was all counties in the RISAs.
Why have we not seen that report? Is that report not available?
That report keeps going back and forth and has not been presented to the state board, and as soon as it presents to the state board, it becomes public knowledge. We just pick up a lot of these odds and ends because we have people that sit on that board.
Right.
That's how we pick them up. We have a couple superintendents, and they were talking about that, and then somebody approached me the other day and said it was in the Charleston paper.
Well, I just found it so very odd because at that meeting, Mrs. Manchin, who's president of the board, spoke. And her comment to 55 boards of education was that our local boards represent the finest in democracy in West Virginia.
Oh, my.
And if someone can explain to me how we're operating under democracy, I would like to know. I have lived in a democracy in many places. Actually, I enjoyed it here for quite many years. But I don't see it for any of the intervention counties. And if that's a democracy, to sit and tell the local boards that they are the finest examples, and to put that type of information out the very next day, I'm just sorely disappointed. That's all I can say to it.
Well, I think, Norma, this is just the beginnings of the discussion of these issues. I think that you're right. There has been discussion for some time of regionalizing public education. And I think in many respects, a good program of regionalizing probably makes sense. But I think it has to be fair and it has to be democratic, as you said.
Well, I think another thing where this fits in, and since it does fit in with that session, they were talking about, and it was in this article I read, they were saying that the board should assume or be granted more authority when it comes, or take more responsibility for achievement. You know, to me, this is totally confusing.
Well, according to that article that was in the Gazette, the role of local school boards, if this becomes a reality, is to monitor the progress or lack thereof in achievement.
Well, that was the
Student
presentation
performance.
at this meeting, but how will we do that unless there's a complete restructuring of West Virginia code? Because we certainly do not set curriculum. We have absolutely no input into the testing. We simply do what we're told. Our superintendent follows the laws that he's given and it sets that into motion. You know, when they gave us the information on the West Virginia summative assessment that we're undergoing now, we were told that we won't receive this information until the fall of 2015. Because apparently with the West Test 2 being on paper and this being the first total computer testing, they want to combine it, the Board of Education, who then wants to send it to the OEPA, and then who wants to send it, who God only knows where, and have these comparisons done. In the meantime, you'll have a school district and 55 of them in various districts that a year later they will receive the information as to how their school performed. Their students will be a year behind toward any correction that school board might have made. You know, I don't see why they don't want to give the school boards the immediate raw data for their districts alone. I can understand not putting it out all over the state. But for the districts they are in charge of, for the districts they have oversight on, providing that raw data so that they can immediately say, here's where we're failing. Oh, here's where we have a problem area. Let's discuss it. Let's seek help for this. Let's get a plan together. If in fact they want us to have some type of oversight on achievement, how can you withhold testing data for a year because they want to do the summative assessment for state comparison? We will know where we stand with the states. I mean, my hope is that on the national assessment level, that this state will come up from the 46th out of 50th. I certainly hope so. But the boards can only address their schools.
Well, Norma, there are all kinds of issues with this, and I think we need to keep an ear to the ground with what the state board is doing and the commission has been doing with its recommendations. Plus, we need to know what legislative leadership and the governor's office thinks about this plan, because as I see it, if you're held responsible for outcomes, the quality of your outcomes, you have to also have some room to make personnel decisions. And if you don't have personnel and finance, all you're doing is reading test scores, there really isn't very much you can do.
Well, especially when you can't adjust curriculum to any form at all.
Well, I kept that article because I think it laid it out, pretty clearly. And the other thing, Mr. Delano, I would question, who determines then the representation on RISA? If RISA is to have this kind of broad power, how do counties have representation or input into the RISA group?
Your audit talks about the regional councils, that you should be there, okay? This has taken away the regional councils, which has taken away your position and my position off the regional council. And they're talking about bringing business people in to run the RISAs on the business district. Now, you have the right, that is those meetings that they have is a board meeting. And you'll get an agenda that comes out, and it's a governance committee. And you have the right to attend. Now, will you be able to speak? Nobody has so far. That sits in the audience.
Well, the way I understand it, there's one more governance committee meeting prior to going to the state board with their, and I do have a date somewhere for it, and that was a question I wanted to ask tonight. I mean, I have no problem personally going and signing up for delegation, expressing my opinion. I don't want to usurp anyone's authority on this board, but at the same token, I don't want to see our children led down this path where money becomes more important than they are. I mean, we're spending the highest dollar in the nation. We're right at the top of the list with all of the states who have good money. Why are our children failing? And I am not certain that business oversight is going to do anything more than manage Charleston's budget. It is not the school boards that are failing. And I just, honest to gosh, don't feel that that is being relayed adequately. I don't want you to feel as though I would step on you, because I would not. But at the same token, I would like to attend and I would like to speak a delegation, and I want this board to know that I have an intention of going down there unless someone can give me a reason why I should not. You know, now that's up to you. If you don't wish for me to do that, I won't, or if you want to go with me, let's all go together. I have no problem.
You brought up the testing, and there is a concern that the superintendents have voiced several times, and it's coming down. We go on October the 6th with the OEPA audit, and they'll go in and do our schools. And again, you need to praise the principals and our staff really working hard to get all this up and running. And I think what they're doing and what we're doing in the classrooms, we'll fare really great on this. But the question we have is, they're gonna take the West Test data, and then they're gonna take the Smartest Balance data.
Which was
And
never
somehow
aligned.
they're gonna try to combine it together to come up with some kind of a format that shows you what your testing is, and they're two complete opposite testing.
It was also pointed out that this is not according to the National Alliance, you know, that you're always hitting this 46 out of 50 according to the nation's report card. Once again, they did not go with the form that, you know, was set for the national level. Once again, just like the next generational content standards are not true core curriculum, this setup will not be the national level report card standards. It is a West Virginia design testing. So, you know, it's awfully hard to look at your children and say, you know, oh, well, you performed against this national level poorly, you know, not good, when they didn't have an opportunity to test evenly and be on even ground with everyone else that national level represents. You know, I have a big problem with them bringing down the requirements. One thing they said down there was that in order to have our third graders achieve at the third grade level, which is the state goal, you know, supposedly if they don't do that, you know, you're not doing a good job, they're going to decrease the requirements again, what it takes to meet third grade level. Instead of assessing the children who may not be capable of ever achieving third grade level, and since they are doing it on their own, determining with true professionals how to assess those children appropriately and where to place them in this, you know, they're going to go ahead and lower the standards, you know, to try to have them meet it. And as everyone knows, some children will never meet that. No matter how hard they try, they will never meet that. And so the children who are excelling, their grades have to pull that up to try to have us have a decent grade. And I find it just amazing. I truly do. I do not understand how that gives anyone accountability for what is happening.
You got anything else?
Yes,
We had, this is all related to what we're talking about, so I'm not getting off subject. One session we had down there was, does school board leadership matter? And this researcher, her name was Dara Z. Handelar, spoke for what, 45 minutes?
quite late.
I'm telling you, she covered everything to the fourth decimal point and just had us sitting there wondering, you know, when this is going to end. And I thought to myself, you know, how could I summarize this? And I thought, okay, if I can't draw a picture of it, then I'm incompetent. So here's a picture I drew. And what they're softening us up. They're softening us up, telling us what to expect. And this diagram, what is an effective board? Well, you deal with personnel, finances, policy, facilities, curriculum, and other. And that goes into a mix right here. And coming out of this, they talked about the only thing that counts is meeting student achievement goals. And that's what the school board's going to be responsible for. How we can do it, I don't know. But it was really fascinating because this researcher said, okay, just because you have a person on the board who's an expert in personnel, is that a good board member? So I said, yeah, probably so. What about if you have a person who knows everything about policy? Is that a good board member? I thought, yeah, sounds pretty good to me. And the researcher said, no, you're wrong. The only thing that matters with personnel policy and anything else, facilities, will it contribute to meeting that goal? So forget about the details of mastering everything under the sun. Think in terms of what you're going to try to do. Will it meet that achievement goal? Now that is a heck of a bill to fill, because, yeah, it sounds really good, but what are you gonna do?
Well, especially since they're going to write us up and audit it if we don't meet the other criteria. I mean, I found that fascinating, how,
Yeah.
you know, unless they're going to totally change the West Virginia code, and I mean top to bottom, inside out, and it'll be some brave politicians who go through that gauntlet. You know, how do we not meet our legislated criteria, you know, what we're required to do? If you don't meet that, your audit will be destroyed. You know, and it doesn't matter how well your children have achieved. Look at 2011. Our children achieved outstanding. Look at pages 4 through 8 of that. Our children were achieving at the top of what the state required. Gilmer County children have not failed. And anyone that tells them they have has not read any documentation to support it. But oh my goodness, it was so important, you know, for facilities that we sit here, and it was such an emergency that we sit here 4 years later, going into the 4th year, and our children are all in the same building, same chairs. I mean, that's how big that emergency was. So, you know, you cannot win. You
Well,
just cannot win.
I read an editorial that someone wrote about what it takes to have a good school. You have to have good teachers, number one. You have to have excellent teachers. They have to know what the goals are, what the program is. You have to have a principal who is a good manager of that school, and you have to have a good measure of accountability. Now, a lot of us are products of good schools, but we had good teachers, number one. And I think right now, there's such a need, I've said this so many times, such a need for good teacher training programs for today's students. Today's students come to school with a lot of problems that maybe we didn't have, and that teacher has to be trained to deal with it. And hopefully, we're going to get a program. But good teachers, if you don't have good teachers, I don't care how much money you spend and how many meetings you have, you're not going to achieve the kind of results that you want. You can't. Well, we'll have many opportunities, I'm sure, to discuss this, because this is coming down the road. And I've listened to folks down around the well in the legislature talk about the 55 palaces of petty politics in our state, and that it needs to change. And education is one place where you can begin that process of consolidating counties. Okay, let's go to item 4, consent agenda, new business. A, the minutes from August 18, August 20. Yes.
I'd like to make a correction in minutes. We've been well versed at training, but we need to do a better job with meeting minutes. Because if we don't have an important item in there and something comes up saying involving a lawsuit or something, we can't go back and fix it. We have to go with what's in writing and what we approve. So I would like the meeting minutes to be corrected to reflect what I brought up. I would like to insert, Carl Armour submitted a memorandum to address concerns about inadequate energy costing for the Cedar Creek School. I'd like for that to be added.
Okay. Are there any other observations? Maybe we should get a motion to approve and a second, then discuss the changes. Do I have a motion that we approve the minutes?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, now, any further discussion concerning anything with the minutes?
Councilwoman, can you,
So that would,
can you say that
With
again?
amendment.
the motion would include
With the
my
amendment
addition.
made.
With amendment.
Okay.
With amendment?
Yeah, with a correction, yeah, addition.
And can you give me that again, your amendment?
Yeah, Carl Armour submitted a memorandum to address concerns about inadequate energy costing for the Cedar Creek School. And they can always refer to the memorandum, which we should have it in file.
You just want to put the memorandum in, put it, see it
That'd
attached?
be preferable.
Okay. We'll just do it that way. Is that agreeable with everybody?
As an attachment to the
As an
minutes.
attachment to the minute? That's fine.
Anything else on the minutes? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. B, budget supplements and transfers, August 2014.
Make a motion to approve the budget supplements and transfers.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, now, do we have discussion?
Yeah, I have a question about the line items, the transfers along line items per levy call. I just have a question as to how much flexibility the school board has in moving those items between transfer lines. And the only question I have is, like, I'm seeing this, and there, it may just be my interpretation of it, funds going out of fine arts and into bus transportation. And I'm not sure, maybe this is more of a question for Kendra as to how those two can intermingle and relate to one another.
Okay.
It was on your budget transfer in the amount of $28,237.30. Of course, that's not the amount of the entity I'm looking at, but that's within that transfer.
Okay. Almost every entry is keeping it within the allocation it's supposed to go in and out of. Like, I see one going out of mileage or transfers out in fine arts into bus drivers' wages and overtime, but it's still staying in fine arts.
It's still say, so for instance, would say like a class trip that has to do with fine arts, arts
Right.
related, that would be okay to
Mhm.
transfer those line items, is that what you're telling me?
Yes, that's what we do.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
I have a question.
Okay,
Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
I
go
didn't
ahead.
see you. Kendra, talk to me about journal entry, general ed 520. It's in the total of 643.59
Oh, okay.
in general fund. To supplement school clearing funds to be received by GSC College and 4-H for class trips taken. But yet I'm seeing it charged against the overtime. Is that bus driver overtime, and why would that be received by the college?
It's, this one's down below is to be received by Gilmer County High School, and above is, Glenville State College and 4-H.
Yeah, well, there's two
class
different
trips
amounts there,
taken.
yeah.
Right, that's, we receipt anything that's not an actual school, which is 001.
You have to speak up here.
She can't hear you, honey.
It's for like bus trips taken, on behalf of Glenville State College and the 4-H, I'm assuming for our students. And they actually cut the check to us, and we'll receipt it in and supplement it into those areas just to show that they paid the amount due for the
Right,
use
well,
of the buses.
that's why I was a little concerned. I thought maybe the verbiage was a little off. It says to be received by GSC.
Right, it is money that we will be receiving.
Right, the college won't be receiving it. It says received by Glenville State College. The
Oh,
college won't be receiving it.
you're right, it should be
for
to be
Glenville State
received
College
from,
trips
that's
or whatever,
correct.
Right?
Yes.
And 4-H class trips taken, okay. No, that, I thought perhaps that's what it was, but
Right, that's
I
right.
just wanted to clarify that.
I have some questions, and Mrs. Brown, this has nothing to do with trying to put you on the spot, it has to do with trying to educate me.
Oh, okay.
But I noticed that we have a considerable number of revisions. Would you
Right.
tell the board why it's necessary this soon in the fiscal year to start having all those revisions?
It is just to make sure that we don't go over or in the red in any areas, on the financial report. And money that we think was gonna be used in one area is actually gonna be used in another, and it's a budget that's constantly changing. It's never the same from month to month, so we do those monthly as needed.
And then there was a category 315 and 316. And if I remember correctly, there was an entry over there to the right that money was taken up some category with reference to cooks.
Right.
So that's a typical type thing. You see, we have too much money in the cook account, so we put it in 315 and 316.
Okay, what's the entry or the dollar amount for that revision, so I can see which one it was?
I didn't commit that to memory. I just remember these items, 315 and 316.
Could I interject one thing there that might help? I know Mr. Devano said he wasn't going to utilize the beginning fund balance till year end. Now, I've operated under that in the past myself. I kind of like that way of doing business. And I know that in the beginning, in order to keep that adjusted, there will be a lot of line item movement in the budget to cover items that you just couldn't foresee. There will be a lot of it, I'm sure, throughout, and this time of year especially.
Right, that's
Until
true.
you get established and see what you needed. And that's pretty standard for that type of operation, when you're gonna use your fund balance at year end rather than bring it in as a line item. You
Right.
know. Am I right, Kendra?
Yes, that's correct.
I just wanted Carl to know.
Okay, thank you.
And the entries you were talking about were step 7, extended curricular, which we use for anything that's extra that's needed, and we use some of it for summer school. So we moved it out of substitutes, like substitute cooks, and
Mhm.
into instructional,
Okay.
professional, other compensation for summer school.
And again, the question wasn't posed to check on you.
Oh, that's okay.
Revision 704, that prompts a question. When will we get a complete accounting for all money spent out of the excess levy account? That's something the citizens ask about. There's still confusion about what they authorize and what the money is being spent for. And there are all kind of rumors out there, and surely we can put them to bed by some simple accounting and say, here's where your money went.
Right.
Will there be an opportunity to do that?
Yes, we could provide a,
We can go down the
Spreadsheet.
levy, your levy call, and we can just go out from the levy call and give you a line item. Step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what was spent out of that, and what it went for.
We've never had an accounting since the state came that showed us what's been spent out of the excess levy. Either a list of checks or, even accounts payable up until this point. We've never had an accounting of those funds, and that question's been asked many times. Actually, I know there was an FOIA put in, and I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
not that one. But there was an FOIA put in, I know that was never responded to that question.
So you want how the levy money's been
I
spent,
would,
and what line
I would
item?
be ever so grateful.
I think the citizens
Line
would really
items
like
with
that.
check numbers and amounts to the vendors, so we could actually see where that money has gone the last 3 years to date. That would be wonderful.
okay, I also provide a monthly spreadsheet to the principals that gives them their available balance.
But I like these
Unencumbered.
new spreadsheets. They're a great addition.
They
and
really are.
very nice. Thank you
They do
so
a good
much
job.
for going to all that trouble.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, again, I'm a glutton for punishment, but I did go through every page of this. I came across this Renaissance Learning. Now, I know about that. I've been on the websites and the site Renaissance Learning. I saw an entry item for $24,690.30. I know what it's for. It's for the STAR program. But here's my question. I've asked before what part of the budget the board is responsible for. And the state refuses to say, you have X dollars to spend. So we're responsible for something, we don't know how much. But anyway, the question is this: if this involves curriculum, should the board been approached before a commitment was made to buy these services? It looks to me like STAR involves curriculum. So I think there was careful choosing my words. I don't think there was an intentional mistake, but I think under what I understand our responsibilities are, the board should have been
And I'll take
approachable.
responsibility for that, because I thought we talked a couple times in July that I was gonna look for a program that went with math and science, and that we were looking at purchase and STAR 24.
You mentioned
Yeah,
that,
sounds
but
like
you didn't
that.
go into detail, and I
Okay.
think you should have gone another step and come to the board and said, this is a wonderful thing, brought in one of the teachers and told us what it was about, and said, is this all right, folks? I think we're either in charge of something, or we're not in charge of something. If
That
we're
is
not
a
in
big
charge of
expense.
something, let's don't play games.
But it came from grants, so it didn't come out of county money, it came from grants that we had.
I can speak specifically as to what fund, what grant it came out of, if you wish me to.
No, I can get the grants, or I think what he's saying, we should have came
Should have
to
come,
them.
should have
After your
come.
presentation, everything, we should have informed them that we were gonna purchase that
Yeah.
when you did presentation at the last board meeting.
But there's a difference between, asking and then bringing in an invoice and say, a check, approve buying something after it's already been bought.
That brings up another thing, your step 7, did you guys approve that from this year, the step 7 program?
We didn't see it. The question was put to you. We didn't see it. I actually had to
No,
go
it was
online
done
and look
before I
at it.
got here.
Well, wasn't, no, we never saw them, so. Did we?
May one is the-
They would have, these four would
Right,
have
I
saw it.
understand. Mrs. Clark.
Okay.
No, we didn't see.
A couple more things and I'll promise.
Let me explain the other question, Carl, that you asked about. You're responsible for everything right now, finance, except for one item, that's 51. So you're correct. All expenses should come your way, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we should do that.
Let's just do it,
Would you?
hit the restart button. The statements that we were presented with the collaring, I like that. So thank you, Mrs. Brown, for making it easier for us to understand.
Okay, good, imagine like that.
Now, let me say one more thing about the vendors. I don't think that there's anything intentional occurring wrong with the budget at all. You know, there'll be some little entry mistakes and all that. But some things I see, it does kind of set off an alarm, like we paid Bowles and Rice $52,000. Okay, each county in the state of West Virginia probably paid Bowles and Rice that much money for essentially doing the same thing for each county. So why in the world in West Virginia, instead of paying 55 times 52,000, can't we come up with some way that someplace it's done once and it's done for all counties? That has to do with
Let me get you a little bit on that too, with the policies. There's
Right.
administrative guidelines that go with these policies.
Right.
So Grant County's a state takeover, which Bowles Rice did their policy manual book too. So I did call Greg Bailey and asked him if I can
Right.
pull administrative guidelines off of theirs and I won't have to pay him. He okayed it, so that's where we're pulling some of our administrative guidelines.
But I've looked at Mon County, Raleigh County, and all of it is just about the same.
And it-
But we don't have an annual contract with Bowles and Rice. We use them on a
But you
per
did,
job basis.
but you
don't
did
we?
with the policy manual book.
Right, the
And you
policy
gotta
manual,
realize
we
we
use them
had,
for grievance procedures,
when I first came
whatever.
here, you had 4 grievances going too.
Yes, and we haven't been tried for that, and really, I hope this is.
Well, we're down to
gets us
one.
down to that,
Yeah, 3
did-
dropped,
3 drop.
so we're okay.
And the last thing, I have some more, but anyway, this will be my last thing. I think Norm will bring up some stuff that I can. For 2013, 2014, we paid RISA something like 181K. And I don't think there's a person on this board who knows what we got for it. It'd be nice just to have an overview presentation of what we got for it. And are there any opportunities for doing things differently to save money?
I have a question, it may seem silly, Andrew, but I am curious. I see in the revenues, we've received, it was a very small amount, $10. Actually, we received $250, we got $10 for mineral leases. Is the board, we own some mineral rights?
I'm assuming that we do, every year we get those small amounts, and it's usually about $10 total for the year, it's very small.
I mean, we just don't know where that land is and where those mineral leases are, who owns the coal, I guess, or
Right,
whatever.
we could do some research and get back to you on that. to
Well,
see.
I mean, it's nothing pressing, but I mean, it would be nice, we should know that, you know.
I asked
what-
that question one time, and it underlies some of our, I think it was some of our old schools that were closed several
Right.
years ago.
Right, like out in the county
yeah.
and whatever.
The
Well,
state still, I mean, the county still under mineral rights,
right.
under that little plot of land.
Yeah, they all
We should be
surround
looking to
Black
sell
Rock.
those, to see if those leases are current and be looking to
We
sell those.
did get
leases for
something
gold.
back 3 months ago from a company that wanted, there were 2 parcels of land that we own, and
We didn't see it.
I asked, nobody knows what these 2 parcels of land are, but they did the research on them. They're gonna drill oil or gas in this one right.
Well, did they tell
But
you
the
what
Marcella
district,
would,
what district that
Marcella,
land's in?
Marcella gas goes out, so they'll hit these 2 little plots of lands we have. And that was the time I sent all that down, because they had facilities and stuff, down to the State Department for them to look at it, and I'm still waiting for a response back.
Do you remember what district the land was in?
No, I just got the information and I just sent it down to them, and I've asked Mr. Heinlein 3 times to check with the attorneys and see.
No.
But it was only gonna offer like $500, I think is what it was.
Right, well, that's an interesting thought, but at this point, I'm not shy of taking $500 if we're not losing value on it. But I mean, we need to know where it was at one point.
Okay, anything else?
Was the payment to the Gilmer County Commission and or was that in the budget?
It was probably in the, accounts payable.
Right, wasn't there a payment there for like $21,000 or so? Now, I know the rent, unless they greatly increased it, was $650 a month. Unless they greatly increased it, that does not hit 21,000. And to my memory, and I may be wrong,
Right.
did the board not loan the county some money to repair air conditioning? And is that the difference between the two?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something about the HVAC or air conditioning units.
Or didn't the board loan them the money to repair that? Because we certainly don't own the building.
I
You
don't
remember,
believe
Jake?
that
I'm
we
sorry.
did it.
In the county
That time.
commission, Mr. Blankenship said he will fix it, and the amount would trade off for the rent.
Well, the amount would trade off for the rent, then why did we pay them $21,000? Was it $21,000 to fix the air conditioning? And that's possible, it's a roof unit.
Right.
But if you take a check on that tender when you get time, maybe let us know, it'd be great to know.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that because that doesn't.
I remember seeing it and I just didn't highlight it, I should have.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Okay, the ayes have it. Item C, financial statement treasurer's report. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'd just like again, if we have discussion, to compliment Mrs. Brown for her good job of putting information together.
Okay, we ready for a vote? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. D, accounts payable. Motion to approve.
I make that motion.
Have a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
I just have a question or two on, and I'm thinking, I know what this involves, is the accident that happened last school session with the vehicle hitting the. My question is more related, not actually, I mean, I'm assuming that Brim or some sort of insurance covers this, that this was a covered expense through our insurance. But, you know, with the safety money that we have, you know, and maybe Mrs. Butcher's already checked into this, I'm not sure, but I have to go through you. The question is, do we have any safety money to help her to get those guardrails up at the top lot and at the lower lot down here? Because I know that there was some railing down there.
We
It's
can
been
look
down
at it,
there
I
for a
know
while.
Mr. Frazier's looked at it too,
Okay.
and the maintenance people were supposed to put them up. Matter of fact, we were back there the other day, and I asked him when, and he was gonna check with the maintenance people. But I could go out and see if there's anybody that, a company would come in and put them all up and get them done.
Well, I know that we do get safety money, and if there's no bigger safety than, you know, our children, and that could have potentially really injured somebody. And, you know, if there's money available and it's money that's given to us, I know that would really help a
I
great
think the
deal.
safety money must have, it dried up, I think.
Is it gone?
It's gone.
Yeah.
I got all of that railing for nothing, at no
If she
cost.
needs, I mean, if there's any money at all we can access into something that.
It's all in the works. I've worked with Jess since I've got involved with maintenance, and Jess has been in contact with the guy. Now, what happened at first, Mrs. Butcher, correct me if I'm wrong, but at first, we just had enough to do the lower lot. So a lot of expenses when we bring somebody in, their travel and moving equipment and things like that. So Jess held off on just doing the lower lot as he found out Mrs. Butcher got more free guardrail to do the back lot also. So now it is all here on site.
Well, I
And
think
I'm
she's
doing-
done her part if
Yes,
she's accessed the
yes.
materials.
I'm going to
I've done my part, I just
Right.
need to, you know, it's just the other part that I can't
Yeah,
do.
do that
And
later.
I
That's
think
right.
that if there's money available, that, you know, that's a
I'll look-
safety
I'll
issue.
look for it.
Okay.
Before I can go get us lunch sledgehammer down here and let Joe go put
But
it
you know,
back.
I don't know if that's something that the welding instructor
I can check
at
with
the
that.
Vogue Tech Center may wanna bring some of his students up and give them some welding experience, and that's cheap labor, you know, and that's, you know,
And it's good quality, that's.
and it's good practice for those students.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Okay, item E, student transfers. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, discussion. questions?
One thing I want you to know that in there, one of my recommendations. So when you do approve it, you approve it with the one recommendation.
There's some denials.
Right, that's what I was going to question. May I ask a question, kind of relevant to that? I don't know if it's fact or not, but could you tell me what the name of our special education teacher half-time at Morgantown is, the last name?
Well, you got me in a bind now because
Is it not related? That was the understanding I had. And I did want to ask you, how's it?
when we go into executive session, I can tell you the name, right? Because then
Right, I
can
did
tell
want to
more
ask you
what's-
about that. If we could go into executive session, we can discuss that. I'd like to hold that.
We are,
until-
we're going in, but I want, yeah, that ties into some stuff, yes.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item F, elementary basketball cheerleading policy.
This is a policy that we brought back, this is the old policy that you all put together, and there was one recommendation that came online, that the coaches and Mr. Fraser and I agree with on the, situations with the, getting a physical and tying it in with the same time the rest of the people get the physical, so it won't cost the parents to pay double and stuff. Also, there was other comments made by the same person, and I did not really want to put those in and insert them in the policy, so you can see them, they're on the back page. If you want to make them part of the policy, people are more than happy to put it part of the policy. If you don't want to make those recommendations, then we won't put it part of the policy. I didn't want to get into the situation of the playing time and the coaches and all that in the policy.
That would have to be discussed with the coaches anyway, before anybody really other than yourself, but to change that.
Okay, well, let's get a motion to approve, and then if we have any discussion, we can do it. Do I hear a motion? Okay, second? I hear a second.
Second.
All right, now, any further discussion on the basketball cheerleading policy?
Has all coaches looked at this policy, reviewed this policy, and our
The
AD also?
two basketball coaches.
Now, when he says the two basketball coaches, he's talking about, we seek input from the two varsity basketball coaches, the varsity boys basketball coach, Steve Shuff, and the varsity girls basketball coach, Amy Chapman. We thought, they're the people that are gonna end up with these students, and, we wanted their input as far as that policy goes.
Any other comments, any questions? All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay.
No, that's not with the addendum.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, G, trip requests. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All right, discussion, questions?
These trips have already been taken. So I think we're just a little late in approving them.
Okay, can I amend the motion?
Yes?
I amend the motion to have it state that we approve the trips that have not been taken.
Second amendment.
So we go with
Okay,
the
the
amendment.
motion is amended that the board approve those trips that have not yet been taken,
Right.
and we have a second to that amendment. Okay, now, discussion.
Well, simply that, it is the board's responsibility to approve any of these financial items we're supposedly back in control of prior to the check being issued. That's a financial requirement and a governmental accounting standards board requirement, pure and simple. The financial handbook calls for it. No problem with the trips are fine, but they should have been brought before the board in the last meeting. Actually, one's July 26th, the other one's August. So we should have had these and been able to discuss them prior to the meeting, prior to that trip being taken and these checks being issued. Thank you.
Is that part of your motion you're gonna make? That way that gives me more leeway to tell these people that you better get them in before the board meeting, if not, they're
Yes,
not
sir.
gonna. Okay.
Include that certainly as an explanation.
Actually, trips taken in a particular month should be known early in the month.
We should certainly,
Before our
before
board
they
meeting.
go, we need to know, if they require, are they taking any special ed children? Do they require an aide on that bus? What time of night are they going? Do we have bus drivers lined up? Is it going to hurt us in some way, in our other needs? It's just the way business is supposed to be conducted. And I'd really like to see them brought before the board so that we can do this appropriately.
Okay, now, as I understand, the motion is to approve as amended. Okay, all those now in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Okay, motion approved as amended. Access to and examination of public records policy. Motion to approve the policy.
Wait, let me make a statement about, I think it would be a good idea to, when you have your staff meetings, to inform, because I think that our principals or whatever, in times past, this has been a routine thing, and they've kind of got used to that. And the principals get thrown in a lurch because the teacher comes up and says, hey, I gotta take a trip next week. Well, inform them that, hey, the board has changed and they need to let the principal know in time to get those requests in.
Send a memo out tomorrow.
Okay. Now,
Okay, the access to and examination of public records policy. Motion to approve that policy.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Let's deal with any questions or discussion.
Policy was out for the 30 days and there were no comments on the policy.
Well, this was not a required policy by the state, it was a legislative opportunity, if I recall correctly. This is
Supreme
not-
Court,
Yes,
Supreme Court.
Now-
But you have to have a policy.
a policy for your records, but I've got to say to you that I think that $25 per hour charge is excessive. I really do. I don't deny that if someone needs to make copies for someone that they need to pay for them, I don't have any problem with that. But I just believe $25 an hour is excessive, and it's actually a method of denying public information to people who may not be able to afford that.
Do we have any latitude on that since there was a legal ruling?
Oh, no, the legal ruling was that they had the right to charge $25 an hour because you're taking people's time.
But it was up to $25 an hour, wasn't
Well,
it?
no, the policy was $25 an hour.
I didn't see that as a policy, I saw that as a
They had the
legislative
policy.
ability.
No, they had a policy. In effect, they took them all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld
Said you
that the
could-
county
you
could charge
do it.
25,
Right,
they
you
had the
can.
right to charge $25 an
But I
hour.
didn't think it was
Because you're
must.
asked, no, there's no must.
Right.
You have to pay, they wanted to pay for my time, like, in other words, if Joe's gonna take out 4 or 5 hours to do this out of his time, then that would charge for his time for doing it and things. Some of the counties are adopting this policy.
I don't see any problem with it because if it's a serious issue and I wanna know, we'll pay the $25. If it's a frivolous issue and I'm willing to waste Joe's time searching through all that stuff, then I'm probably not gonna go through with it.
Well, if I want to know, I'll pay also, but, we're not the only ones, and we have a lot of, as has been pointed out, and according to our student count, we have a lot of people in the county who are not of financial wherewithal to pay that. And when their students have problems, and they need policy information, or other data that may be, necessary for them to try to protect their children or to feel as though they can. I just feel that it's awfully high. I mean, I'm not dead set against it, but I just want to point out that that makes access to information difficult for the majority.
Again, all your policies are online, so if anybody has a problem with a policy, they can access a policy, so it's there.
If everyone has a computer,
Yeah.
if
Well,
everyone
I
is
mean, we can
computer
make, we
literate.
can make access.
Are you going to charge for someone to sit down and teach people who are not computer literate?
But if you wanted something done and everything else like that, there's no rhyme or reason you can't come to the county office and ask that a copy could be remade, or you can make the copies for yourself and take your time to do it.
I can do that, and I have
Well,
volunteered to do that.
not only you as a board member, but anybody.
But are you going to make that public, that they could come up and make their own copy?
Well, when you send back a Freedom of Information Act, you can tell them in that letter that, which most of the time we did. And I'll tell you where this really came into effect. There was a teachers union asked for every county in the state, for all their finance records, all this other stuff and everything. And basically what everybody did is write a letter back that says, this is access to you. You can come up on the 5th day and do it and access. You can look at the books will be there, and you can run the copies off and everything else like that, and pay for the copies
Right.
and things of that nature.
Right.
That's the thing that I think Ms. Ratliff's talking about is the things like that. But
Well, that's always
But I'll be
been, that
honest
you
with
could
you,
tell
parent
them the
comes up there,
information would be
if
available.
they want
at
something for a
different
child,
age.
I'm not gonna tell a parent, don't bother coming up here. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, you know.
But I mean, I don't want somebody to come up there and have tie my people up for 3 or 4 hours.
No, and that's just it, and that's what concerns me when we just get things so very high, because that is a high charge. You know, and I mean, we've got a lot of parents that just cannot afford it.
I've got expensive staff though.
How often do you get
This is
such
your
a
problem,
request?
you've got a good salary, take care of it.
How often do you get such a request?
All right.
I have a
Not
question.
often. The last request I think anybody got in the state was from a teachers organization.
So this wouldn't be common for you to get someone that wants to tie up your staff a great deal of time, and if I read it right, it's not common. And if it doesn't require more than 10 minutes, this individual's not gonna be charged more than just the copies,
Copies, right.
40 cents a sheet, right?
Yeah, and the same thing, if they wanna come up and sit down with, and they wanna say, look at some finance stuff, we provide, here's your finance stuff, they can look through it and make copies of
And
what
making
they
their
have.
own copies. Well, I mean, I thought, when I read that, I thought $25 is excessive. But, you know, if you have someone that's going to take half a day out of your central office staff's time, you know, but I don't believe that's gonna be something that's gonna happen on a regular basis.
Anything that would come out that big would come from outside the county.
Right.
Somebody outside the county asking us to run all this stuff off.
And I would certainly encourage, even if the board does decide to adopt that, you know, just from my personal, there are people that may need a little help and may not have internet access to policies, and I would just ask that we be serving the people in a way that's considerate, and I know your staff up there is, and I don't want to give the idea to people that we are keeping information from them or trying to defer them from wanting
Right.
information. I don't want to put that image out there to the public by, you know, the costly, but I would trust that you would handle that with discretion.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the policy signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. All right, item 5, annual financial statement, 2013-2014.
We've been getting a lot of different categories. Some of you as a board member want this, some want this in financial statement, some want that. So what my finance director did is put some samples of things that go, and they're labeled, and please look at them and say, yeah, we want A, B, 2, 3, whatever you want for the financial statement, so we know exactly what you want and what you're looking for.
In addition to what would be accounts payable, the necessary accounts payable.
I just tell you, some of them doesn't want all the stuff that's coming out. So we want you to tell us what you want.
Individually.
If you want something different, you just tell me, Ms. Hurley, and I'll get you anything you want for
Mr. Fry,
$25.
you know I want the
$25 an
accounts
hour.
We're paying $25 an hour, so I think you're making a little better than that these days.
Well,
That's okay.
But no, you have the right to request additional, that's
Yeah,
fine too, but I
That's part of being a
want,
board member, you
them
can
to know.
request that information.
right, you can request that information, that's no
Without
problem. As
Well,
right here as a part of
I
this
understand
board, you can
You
ask.
must realize
Without
how difficult
$25.
it was for 2 months for me to see accounts payable, so
You shouldn't have to
please,
pay for
no, I
that.
shouldn't have to, I agree.
well, I think
We
a
give
lot
enough time, honestly, we really
a
do.
lot of this discussion went back to the training sessions that we had back in June, when I think what it was, a gentleman from Pendleton County that had the one-page summary.
AP Muller.
Yeah,
It was,
and I think, you know, for some of us, a one-page snapshot of where we are tells us what we need. Others want more detail. But as far as I'm concerned, if I know where we are each month in terms of our finances, that gives me the snapshot. But I'm just one person, and that's kind of my history, is to look at summaries.
It'll make it
And
very
I think-
difficult to approve accounts payable, Mr. President.
My comment would be on this, and it doesn't mean everyone has to nod their head and agree, but my comment is, you know, a board member should have access to any type of financial information requested. I believe that in the past, Kendra has generated these reports, and maybe some board members don't look at them, maybe some do. But I think that information should be provided, and then we use the discretion that we feel we need to do to make a vote that we can stand by, that we feel comfortable with. But I think that if it summary suits some board members, that's fine, but I think the information should be provided, and we use our discretion as to how much input we want, or how much time we want to study the information. I just don't think that taking a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, I don't think that's fair. I think that, you know, if Mrs. Hurley feels she needs more information, and maybe Mr. Armour feels that he needs less, or I need more, I think that that's our job to determine how much we want to study those documents, and we're not asking her to do that much more than what she's currently provided in years past.
We understand, that's what we want to find out today, exactly what, we've been going, this is what they want, this is what they don't want.
But
The state,
you
we've asked the
understand
state
that-
what they want. If you guys want, like, if these three gentlemen only say, I want this, this, and this, then we'll give it to them. But if you two, or Ms. Hurley wants the big bundle, surely we'll give it to her too. But the comments have been made, well, we can't do too much handout to this, that. We've even been trying to work with the state, what we gotta give, what we don't have to give, what they really want. So we sat there the other day and said, you guys tell us what reports you want and we'll generate them.
We just have a compromise and put both. Have the detailed
That's
material
the
for
point I
those
was
who want to
making.
go into the detail, and someone who wants to look at one page, they can look at one page.
Can you write this down? Mrs. Hurley wants it all. Okay. And
All plus simplicity.
Okay, so your motion is that it all be available, a summary sheet and the detail, and then it's up to us as to what we want.
We want to review.
Okay,
That's
then.
what I was my point.
Wait, let me ask you
said
a
it-
question,
said it
which reports what do you want? I mean, you gotta tell us what reports that you actually want. Ms. Hurley said she wants it all, which we understand that she'll get it all. Do you all, like, here's a packet right here. That's the question. We don't know what,
Yeah, there's some new reports there that are very nice, and you might want to look at them, President, so that where they're carrying, you're talking about budget information, and it gives you a good overview, and it's a nice report that Mrs. Brown did this month. I hadn't seen it before on budget. You may want to look. But I would say they need more time to consider what they want, Mr. Devon, because no one really knew this question was coming. Wouldn't you say, Mr. President?
Yeah, I don't know that we need to settle it tonight, but I think, you know, we have discussed it, and there are different points of view. And it's not, that if we have a one-page summary, it's not that we can't get the detailed information.
I don't have any problem with anyone that wants to do whatever they wish to do. All I ask is to give me the information that West Virginia Code says that I'm entitled to, and I'll be a happy camper.
Okay, now,
that's the question. The West Virginia Code tells us to give you this information, but it doesn't tell you how to give it to you.
Well, West
Like, in
Virginia
other
Code,
words,
for
here's,
instance.
I can give you this, and that's
Well,
not what you want, but
Now,
that gives West
the
Virginia Code.
financial statement in and of itself, I'm fine with the way it was presented. I mean, I do, if I wanna go up and ask Kendra to see the entire thing, I could do that, the way the financial statement was presented, but when we're talking about the monthly, that's a different story. You know, and on the monthly, it's difficult to pre-approve checks if you haven't seen what the invoice is. You
I know what you're saying,
You
but
know
I'm
what I'm
just saying,
saying?
when you say West Virginia code, we're giving you what West Virginia code asks.
You are
but you're-
now, yes,
But
West
you're giving
Virginia
us,
code
you're asking
requires.
for more than what the code wants, and that's fine too. But we
Well,
want to know
you
is
know,
what,
it's
what
debatable as
actually
to
do
what the
you,
code
what
calls
actually
for.
do you want?
I would like to have the invoices for each fund, or if not the invoices, the
We-
accounts payable report.
I understand, we know what, you want the
I
whole
would like to
package
know the
deal.
budgetary line items, I want to know whether or not they're overexpended, I want to see the budgetary transfers that fills those overexpended.
But I got 4 other people on the board that doesn't want every, all
Well, I
the things that you
understand, and
have.
I'm not debating them, they're right not to look
I
at
know,
it.
but that's the ones I'm talking to now.
Oh,
I
I'm
wanna
sorry,
know-
you were looking at me saying, what do
Well,
you
you're right
want, and
across
I'm
the table.
answering you.
But I need to know what they want, and then we
Oh, I
can, you can
apologize.
look at, no, you're okay, you can look at it and then let us know.
Table it
first.
till the next meeting.
Specificity
Carl.
plus simplicity.
Carl, what is it that you see as what you would like to have?
It depends on the occasion. Sometimes if you kind of have a feeling you need to dig into all the facts, you'll take the time to go through every page. Other times you may say, you know, I'll just look at this like I would a financial statement for GE or something, 1 page, and that'll do it. So I don't know how we can get by without having both. Having the detail for those who are detail people for a particular month, plus the 1-page summary. I think what J.P. Mowry suggested, if the board would agree on that approach, it seemed that in Pendleton County, they did both. And Mr. Mowry would even flag for people, you know, here's a, like we had one budget item, $50-some thousand for bus repair somewhere, that in that paper. So he would flag and say, you might want to look at this, you have this big expense this month, or he put a yellow mark through the quad. So specificity plus simplicity, if you could do that.
Now, he didn't explain to you down there at the board meeting too, he goes to the board meeting and has a PowerPoint that he presents that the whole budget down through and goes right through that line. That's the part he left out on with you guys, because
Well, he also sends
talked
them
to
an
the
internet
principal.
packet that they can open each one of those and print what they want.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get to that too, but I can't get Howard Cole to call me back.
Right. I mean,
Well-
they've got a lot of data available, you know, and it's really nice what they've done. I went through what Mr. Maury did. Certainly, it's very good, and I know Kendra has seen it. And it's not much different from what she provides us when she gives it all to us. There's a couple little extra reports you may throw out there, but it's not a lot different. We have our information
We're getting there.
access.
We're working right now with Howard Cole on that program. And if we get that program, everything's gonna come to you electronically. So you won't have all this paper
Well,
here.
when my internet's down, then I guess I just have to call. How am I gonna get through to the Board of Education?
Do you think maybe we need to think about this issue for another month and come prepared at the next meeting to tell you what?
Tell us exactly what you want.
Well, I can tell you what, I like what we had tonight.
I did too.
I like that because it was a summary, but yet it was still accounts payable was there. You could look at that and study that if you wanted to. I like the way she presented tonight.
Okay.
So she did give us some of the reports we're used to getting, but then she did a summary also. So I was impressed by what she
Okay,
presented.
well, if it's okay, Mr. Superintendent will decide on this issue, but yeah, I think a 1-page summary with any of the detail that you want is fine, but I like to look at a snapshot, and then if I have questions, go into the detail, but that's just my approach.
Well,
So-
that's, my approach is, I look at the summary sheet, and the only question I'm gonna have, and I'm gonna hold our superintendent and our staff people, that they're gonna do their job, and they're gonna screen those expenses, and they're gonna make sure that those expenses are, applicable. And when that amount and the expenditures and the revenue starts getting close, then my questioning is gonna become a lot more serious with them. So other than that, my feeling is, let him do our job, let him do his job, let the treasurer, the staff people do their job. But I'm gonna be looking at summary sheet.
But you cannot be holding them totally accountable when you've got oversight ability to help them. You're talking about a limited staff, multi-millions of dollars. That would be just like the Gilmer County Commission, and it has nothing to do with capability because God knows we are blessed. But that would be just like the county commission sitting there and saying, oh, well, let's see, they gave me this stack of bills, I approve them. No one's gonna make a mistake, no one needs any oversight. I disagree with you, Tom. But, you know, it's up to you how you feel about it. I don't think it's saying that they can't do their job, I say it's our responsibility to try to help. You know, we
Well,
don't have to
that may
go
be
through every
true.
bill, we don't need to obsess over them.
That may be true, but
Most of them, I'll let them go.
I'm not gonna slide back through here and point out a $12 bill somewhere or a $50
No, I did point out
expense
$10
somewhere.
revenue because we don't know where we got the
I
money
know,
from.
and I'm not referring to that,
Right,
but I'm
but a
not gonna take the board's
$21,000
time,
bill was worth asking the question over.
picking out different things, different items in there and question. If I've got a question, when I get this right here, and I've got a question, and Kendra knows this, Mr. Navalno knows it, I'll pick up the phone and call him. I'll say, what is this right here? You know.
Well, gee, I received an email that everyone else received that told me that we couldn't speak to anyone at the office unless we spoke to Mr. Devano first. I know you received a copy of it, I know Carl did, I know Bill did, I know Misty did, I know I did.
Well,
Did that change?
it has now, but
Oh.
up until this point, I didn't call.
The email-
wasn't notified.
Email you said is any request or anything more or less to come through me. If you need a request for something to come through me.
All the people in the office were told they were not to discuss anything with the board unless they came through you. Now that I have the email, I'll be glad to bring you a copy. Went to everyone in the office and it went to everyone on this board.
I sent an email out in the
You
office like
did,
that?
sir.
Did I? I don't remember sending an email out. Not with the office
Kendra.
staff.
Yes, it did.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and look.
It was immediately after I came in and saw the invoices, the one and only time I've seen them.
Okay, well, I think we have discussed it, I think we all have our view on it. I think that it's clear that we're not going to be denied information. It's just a matter of how much information that we have in our hands at one time. Okay, well, let's go on to item 6, discussion and or other. Superintendent.
Did we do the financial report though? The financial statement?
I don't
That's
think
just
we
what
made the
you've
motion.
been talking about for the last 20 minutes.
Well,
Well,
the
I know, but we
annual-
didn't get past what we were going to get for it. I wanted to ask one question. There's interest on long-term debt in the amount of $36.70, Ken. What do we have, what's the long-term debt for, please?
That is any of our capital leases, which includes, the bus radios through Motorola and through United Bank, the Normantown mobile class units.
We still have not paid off those mobile homes at Normantown?
We are almost paid off, but just a few more months, I believe.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, so you think we have covered that topic, Mr. Devine?
Stay status quo.
Okay, well, I have one thing under other. There will be an extracurricular activity on September the 26th at Normantown. I'm going to have a grist mill and old engine over there, and I certainly would like to have any board members volunteer to help me be mill hands if you'd like that day.
What date is it?
Friday, September 26th. We give the kids all a bag of cornmeal, and we show them how it used to be done, and give them a buttermilk recipe, and if they can't make cornbread, it'll be their own fault.
I have some other.
Okay.
First of all, let me start out with this. We've had a lot of training about this. So, you're told, don't ask questions you know what the, until you know what the answer is. Well, I know what the answer is. But anyway, what's the process for getting agenda items on the agenda?
Okay.
Want me to answer? The
Question?
policy is, as confirmed by several individuals last week, that any board member has the right to request an agenda item. And just by that fact alone, it should go on the agenda. It does not require a vote by the board. It does not require a 2/3 majority. And that's just the way it is. And if it's an agenda item that you initially say, well, I don't even know we have that, you still owe it to the person to give them the professional courtesy to let them talk, let them have their say, and then take the appropriate action. So
But
I opt for sticking with the policy and what's being done elsewhere. And if someone wants to have an agenda item on the agenda, let's put it on there.
Your board president makes your agenda. He's supposed to have input in the agenda, so really basically, you're correct in everything you're saying, but your request has to go to your board president and stuff like that you would like to have this on the agenda item.
The item on financial reports is one that you wanted, and I
Yeah.
conveyed that to Mr. Devano. But yes, if this is what we're going to do, and I had no problem with your going directly to Mr. Devano, but if you want me to be the conduit for items that you'd like to see on the agenda, I will see to it that Mr. Devano knows about the desire to have an item on the agenda.
How much time before your meeting? Because there is a certain amount of time in order to get that on the agenda.
72 hours.
How much?
We send the agenda out on Wednesday, we have it done by Wednesday before Monday, so you got like
Can't
3
include
days.
Saturday and Sunday.
3 days that we send them out there. So if you've got something on the agenda, just call this, your board president, and he can relay it, and we can put it on if that's how you want to do it. Or you can call me and we can put it on, whatever you all decide to do it.
I'll opt to go to the board president. Let's have some more items. You know, in this small town, you can't even have a family argument without being reported on the street.
That's right.
Everything that happens is known by everybody in town. For an example, whether it happened or not, it's a horrible thing. But anyway, I received a citizen's comment about something was in a police report. It had to do with RISA and the police being at the high school. And when people hear that, they don't know whether there's been some serious threat or some altercation or what. So I wonder if Mr. Devano would just tell us what happened on August the 24th so we can put this to bed.
The principals got together and they wanted, it was the 25th, really.
25th?
Yeah.
Pardon me.
25th.
The principals got together and they wanted to do their safety drills, code red, code green, code whatever they wanted. And they asked Bill Bickerstaff, who's contract through RISA, to come and provide it. A gentleman from the police department wanted to be an observer and went around to all the schools with him as an observer. And that's it. They called 911, told them they were having a drill, wasn't anything out, and we had to drill. And there was some of the schools, there were parents in the building that appreciated, saw how the kids
Sure.
reacted. And really, to give you another comment, all of our schools passed with A's from the reviews, so they did a great job, and they knew what to do.
Good deal. Yeah, I have a few more things.
Yeah, you kind of confused me on the police report, I didn't know, couldn't
Well,
find out
you
where it was or
admonished me
anything.
mildly for bringing it up, but then you sent an email back, so I forget it. Okay, it's been, what, 3 years since we've been under intervention, and we have not had a comprehensive progress report. No one has come in and given us a real detailed report about what the state has corrected, what it has achieved, what remains to be achieved, to be done, and what the target date is for correcting everything and exiting. And here we're told we're going to have a meeting with EPA people in October, where I to be asked what we've achieved with personnel, curriculum, finances, on. I couldn't cite examples. So I would like for the state or somebody to come in and give this report so we could be up to speed, and we're asked questions. We can say, yeah, here's what's been done.
You got two OPA visits. One
Right.
that's coming in on the 6th has nothing to do,
Right.
but it's all mostly going to be schools.
That's
And
right.
that's with the schools. Now, the other OPA audit, they're going to tell us when they're coming in. That's why right now we're working on a strategic plan, which is gonna be brought to you.
Right.
And you're gonna know everything in the strategic plan when we do it, the county strategic plan. The results, like we're gonna have, the 24, all the results that you're gonna know about that. Anything else that you feel comfortable that you wanted to know, to answer any questions that OEPA is gonna bring in here, you let me know, and then we'll bring some kind of an in-services if we have to from somebody to upgrade you and let you know exactly what it's all about.
Well, could you, that's very liberal. Could you arrange for that person to come in, look at the categories in the audit report, and go through specific criticisms that were leveled against the county, and say what has been done to correct these things, what remains to be done, and give us a target date when all this is going to be cleaned up, so the control of the school can be turned back to the county. Right now,
We're in the
we don't
process
know.
of doing that now for you. We're reading over the audit now
Yeah,
that they got, and we're trying to jot down things that we have to get done.
yeah, what
You
we've
know,
done
The board has never been presented
we've
that
done-
audit, have they, Tom?
and what remains to be done.
Well, you got a changeover now. The gentleman that did your audit back and put you on state control, he's no longer there now. So they're
Well, I
looking
knew
for
that's
another
been a
OEPA audit.
time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
nonetheless, not the audit of 2011, when they came in 2012, I don't believe the board was ever presented with that audit,
Uh,
the second time when
You
they,
should have a copy of it.
I don't believe the board was ever presented with that audit, and that should have shown at that time, at least partially, what had been corrected and what.
Maybe you don't have it, but I think.
I don't believe the board was presented with
You all
it.
have it?
I think we had it.
I don't,
Mr. Blankenship gave us a copy, and he included in that everything that he had taken care of. Remember?
he had a
That's
copy,
the-
but I
But
didn't.
what he
see it.
handed
It was
out-
online.
And I read every word of it. It was very
The OPA.
cryptic. He would take a certain category and maybe cover it with 2 or 3 words. So I couldn't go back to the audit report, read a specific criticism and say exactly what
How
had
it
been done,
happened.
or hadn't been done, or what remains to be done.
Well, that's like the strategic plan. I read the last strategic plan that was updated. Over half of that strategic plan, every answer to it was, that'll be handled in the CEFP. That'll be handled in the CEFP. I
Well-
mean, that's really not an answer.
How about we just do this? Let's get the strategic plan together, which is due in November. Let's go through the audit like we're starting now, and let's just have a work session sometime in the end of October, November, to go over all this with you all.
Couple more items. There've been some concerns about access to the website. And some people are having a little bit of trouble going to the Charleston website to get access to policy and whatever. Do we have a problem with our website? A bill hadn't been paid or something? I think we're the only county in West Virginia where you can't go to Google, but Gilmer County, West Virginia Board of Education, and you immediately get a website. You don't get it.
We'll have to check that, because I know what happened was when I first came here, they dropped the company that you were using before, and they blocked this out. And I think the only one that uses the same site now is the high school that they've been using. But they had to change our access.
Yeah.
WebNet down in Morgantown's taking care of it now. But they had to change the access to our internet.
The only way I've been able to get into it is to go into the West Virginia Department of Education's website, put in
Yeah.
Gilmer County Schools on the search. and-
That's what I tell
and keep- I mean, that's,
Yeah.
Okay.
you know.
And one more thing, and this is all. Mr. Devano spoke about the telephone system not working. Now, when I first got on the board, I heard figures as high as $250,000 having been spent on a telephone system that apparently doesn't work. So what is the status on the telephone system? Does it work? Do we still have more money to spend? Do we have options for spending that money to get it done cheaper? I've seen entries in the financial reports for $5,000, $10,000, whatever. We're paying somebody money like Frontier. I don't know whether that's to come in and fix a telephone or what, but people complain about the telephone system.
That's our phone bill, isn't it?
It should be through Tate
Tate
Communications.
Communications is the one that put the phone system in.
Okay, so Frontier did. But do we still have more that we have to spend to get the phone system working?
Is it the
It's
VOIP?
working, it's working today.
Yeah.
Yeah, today, it's not
Yeah.
tomorrow.
The last couple of days, last couple of weeks, it's working.
I was able to get through a couple.
You probably jinxed us that it'll go out tomorrow.
Darn.
But Tate's been over here 2 or 3 times. Tate tells us it's a problem because we have a server down here at the high school. And that's the problem that they have. But if you want to, we can look someplace else. We can bring in Verizon and see what they think, or Frontier, since we got phone lines with them, and see what they think.
Well, since that isn't a major
Pay
facilities thing, the
$175,000 for
board
that
should
system,
have
maybe?
some say in, give us the options, what needs to be done.
Okay.
Let's do
All right.
it.
I'll ask the Verizon to come in, or Frontier, since we're dealing with it.
Didn't we pay like 100, I know the last quote I ever got from you on it at that point, and that's been several years, I think it was 2011 when we got that system. It was like $175,000
We just got
had been paid
It wasn't
That was the
2011.
highest.
for the new system, to have the new system put in, the VOIP
Right.
that we're dealing with
It
now.
wasn't 2011.
I don't know if that was the final or not, if it went up to 200, I don't know.
The state recommended you do that.
Under
No,
I
I
Under
understand,
the
but
state.
you know what really gets me about that is voice over internet protocol.
Right.
We know
went with the
how
lowest price is what
difficult
we
it
did
is
that
to
time.
It was
even get internet
2012,
at Normantown
13. It
Elementary.
wasn't 2011.
We know how many times the college has had just an absolute disaster, and they had Carnegie Mellon put their umbrella in, you know. I mean, we just don't have the access. Calhoun County's trying to sue poor Frontier right now because they can't get broadband adequately. You know, they had to spend that kind of money to put in a broadband access system. It's no wonder it's failing. You know, I understand totally why it doesn't work half the time. I just don't know what, can we go back to the landline and wait till we get broadband? I mean, I'd like to be able to call, I really would.
My, we'll go down to May. My concern was, but I'll just refer back to what Carl said, and I don't care what kind of a phone system you get, as long as you have a backup on it. Because everything is subject to fail, but at least we could have an old landline telephone up there in the board office somewhere that would ring in the principal's office or somewhere, so in case of emergency, that we can get a hold of someone, you know. Anything electronic is gonna fail sometime, you know, as long as we have a
I
backup.
mean, if you only had one on the secretary's desk in each area, that would be something, I agree with you.
And my other concern was, I asked some questions about Cedar Creek School, and I'm still not sure how much is designated from the state for that school, how much is coming out of our funds, who's responsible for what during that operation. As far as,
Can I answer that a little bit?
You know, I think we've all been hit with a lot of questions, and I've gone back and retraced some of my steps, and former superintendent assured us that was a turnkey operation. And when that school was finished, the ribbon would be cut, and it would be out with the budget we had. The expense for the access road and site preparation, being our responsibility, was never discussed. I had a call from the governor's office this week asking, they were getting questions about it. And they were all confused on who owned the property, and when we were finished, I'm not sure that I know. I think what we need to do, if the governor's office is involved and the SBA and we're involved, we need to get everything on the table so that we know what the county is going to be actually responsible for in the end, and if so, if we need more money, where we're going to get it. And that's basically what I told Chris Weichel. I said, you know, I'll convey that. And so I think there are a lot of questions out here. And like most issues in town, there's a lot of misinformation that floats up and down the street. And the only thing I've assured everybody is that we're not going to build it over on Leading Creek. So I think, Mr. Superintendent, this is an issue that we really need for the board and for those who are asking questions to get totally clarified.
Well, let me go on the Leader Creek. I did send an email to Superintendent Mace tell him that the memorandum of understanding says we have to have an advisory committee put together, and I suggested that we meet September 30th. I've got a lot of concerns and voiced them to a couple of people that our board doesn't have much say in that school for some reason. Everything has to go through the Lewis County Board, and I think we need to get all that stuff settled. And I think down the road that Dave Moore from the House of Delegates is gonna come up and sit down. I made a request through somebody to have him come up and sit down and tell us exactly what that the legislation says. So that's what we'll do to Leading Creek. The governor's office is when you got that call, the SBA was over there. And Chris asked the SBA something, and he just told him some things. That's why you got your call back. We'll get with that in a little bit.
Okay. All right, information,
Okay, let me get a couple things under
okay.
discussion. First of all, what I'd like to do with permission of the board, and we have enough bank time that we can do it, is probably sometime in the next 2 weeks, is have an early out, and we'll try to really tell the teachers, to tell the parents and get it out, to have our staff go over everything that we're supposed to go over before the October 6th walks in, and they have everything lined up for the OEPA. Is that okay with the board? Do you have any objections to have an early out like that? So we can give it to the teachers so they can go ahead and we don't, principals, we have to sit down, we get a time and a date that we want to do it, so that'll give them some time. If things come up, they can adjust the thing for the audit and things of that nature, okay? Second of all, right now, we're getting parent volunteers. I did ask, and go back to the money situation again, I did ask in our policies that our parent volunteers are fingerprinted and have the TV test. I don't care if they're part-time, full-time, there for a couple hours a day, that they should do that. We're getting them in now, and usually they come back to the board. Does the board have any objections if I get a signature from the principal, and I talk to the principal, we get the fingerprints back, we get the TV test back, that we go ahead and let them start volunteering within the schools, because our next board meeting is middle of October. Anybody have any objections to that? And then bring them.
Fingerprinting, criminal background check.
And that's for our volunteers.
That's for volunteers.
I think that, we're on such a lean staff at the schools, if you get those checks back, I'm just speaking for myself, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I don't see a problem.
No objections? Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, under information, personnel,
You have the information that's in Fund 51, that the state, that's the fund that state's responsible for. Just for your information, the personnel and things of that nature's there.
okay.
Okay? Again, we're still in the state formula right now. Our enrollment, Joe and I were talking about, when we have a couple extra kids, we can maybe ask for another bus. So we were looking at the enrollment, if it stays the way it is, we'll be up probably about 2 or 3 students over from last year, so that's great for us.
Can I ask a question? There was an entry, and I'm going back a little bit, since you mentioned the bus, I guess I can bring up a question. There was a fairly sizable amount of money we had to pay, 50-some thousand for mechanical work on a bus. Is our bus fleet pretty much decrepit, or are we going to be having to buy new buses in the immediate future, or where do we stand?
We get enough money every year to get one new bus. So basically, every year, we get one new bus. Now, this, we had some bad luck. We had a couple buses near the same years. I want to say 98, 99 or something like that, but a year is common for motors to fail.
Right.
And unfortunately, we had 2 go at the same time, and we repaired the motors in both those buses. Now, we are going to have those buses probably still for quite some time, 3 or 4 more years, 4 or 5 more years maybe. So it was worth for us to rebuild the motor and not just get rid of the bus. But no, we just had our first inspection. Now we only checked 6 buses. We got a new inspector, and he was very well. He was very pleased with our buses and our structure. So no, I think that'd be completely inaccurate to say our bus fleet is in poor shape. Now we have older buses.
How many
And
buses
these
do we
were
have?
older buses. We have 20 total. We have 14 daily routes, and we have 6 spares. We have this year's bus that will be coming later. We haven't received it yet. We do a year, like Mr. Devano just mentioned, a year where we increase enrollment, we are eligible to apply for an additional bus. A year that, as small as we are, a year that we're able to get two is really big for us. So hopefully enrollment, when it comes down the time for that number, that magic student count, hopefully enrollment is up, and we will definitely do everything we can to apply and get the extra bus. But no, overall, I would say our fleet is in good shape. Now, do we have older buses? Yes.
Yeah.
Our spares are our oldest, and but we just had some bad luck with two older buses. We had to rebuild the engines in both those buses at the same time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
No
Joe,
problem.
what is the value that you get out of those buses when
We-
you're able to sell?
We don't get much, to be honest. When I came in 8 years ago into the position I'm in now, they had switched over and used public surplus and posted on public surplus where way more people can see it. And I have just continued that. I've never done anything else otherwise. I guess I used to do just sealed bids in county basically, and they might get $1,000, $2,000. It varies, but we've accepted 5,000, and the most is probably like 9,000. So we're not going to get a whole lot of money out of it. Now that money I always request it goes back into the bus replacement fund, and that fund right now is setting. Kendra, I don't know for sure. I asked you 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I don't want to put you on the spot. You've been there enough, but that fund is setting in pretty good shape. I want to say it's plus 50,000 right now. So a few more years from now, and selling, we'll ask permission to sell an older bus here soon. One that we're just not using, that's not been on the road for a while, and it is very expensive to keep them on the road each year. They have to pass inspections, and these inspectors they're just doing their jobs, and they do it very well. But it's very costly every inspection, because we have to fix everything they say to fix, or the bus isn't going to be on the
Is
road.
that that DOT 3 inspection that we see on our invoices, is that?
We must be. I don't
think-
get
I
into
think
dots
that's
and
what- I
codes.
think-
Kendra, I
I
always
think
refer to
that-
Kendra with dots and
Yeah, I
codes.
think it is, I think
And
it has
if-
to do with inspections, and it is costly.
Yes, yes. But overall, our fleet's in fairly good shape.
Well, thank you.
The last number I saw was 110,000, was that for the bus?
It was, and the last two have been a little bit more expensive. This last one, the one we have coming this year, now we haven't paid it yet because we haven't received the bus yet. I think it's right around 100,000, but it is a special needs bus, which puts a little bit more cost. And the last two special needs bus, Mr. Blankenship and I, we talked and discussed it, and we also went with air. So the last two buses we have had air conditioning on them, which adds another $5,000 to $6,000 to put air on. Mr. Devano and I will talk when it comes time for the next bus and see if we continue that or not. But that is what you're talking with air. You're talking $5,000 to $6,000 more just by adding air. And they are 77 passengers, so it's the biggest bus we get. So that cost is right around 100. If we went with a 66 passenger and no air and not handicapped, but it depends on the need of the driver we're replacing
Right, and what we need.
and things like that. But yes, you're in the right ballpark with that figure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're down then to item 8, delegations. Let's see. Phil Starkey.
Good evening, I'm back. Notice. I am surprised that there's no concerns on your agenda anymore for the board members, but I am disappointed that the agenda still has delegation at the last. I guess I should be thankful that you didn't make me wait through the executive session to have my say, but I thought the new superintendent, the last time was here, he said I was stealing his thunder, that he would correct this slight to the public, but I misjudged him. He didn't correct it. Even the State Board of Education, the RESA 7, 54 other counties have delegation at the beginning at the thing, so the public and people don't have to sit and wait through everything. An agenda, even our county commission, plus the legislature, they also do that same thing. The board members, you have the power to correct that. I repeatedly have asked for it to be placed on the agenda to have it corrected. Thank you, Mr. Armour. I did do that, but I wasn't given the benefit of getting it on so that and I even said, I'll let you vote, if you don't want it. But I repeatedly asked for that, and I'm saying to please correct this. let people come in. You do for the people coming from Charleston or the architects or anyone else. You don't make them sit and wait like you make a citizen do that. And it doesn't fare well, I'm saying. I'm going to pass out a paper to each one of you that I'd like for you to have. It was intercepted. Yeah, take it up and give them to her, if you will. This was an intercepted resolution prepared by Mingo County. That this resolution is to be handed to the state board, I think, this meeting. And I think all of you have heard that the Mingo County Board President, Bill Duty, has resigned. And I'd like for you to please read it. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's very demeaning to an intervention board. And I think you need to get ready. This may be happening to you all next. But I did give you a copy so you could read it. My second statement has to do with the one elementary school being located in the wrong place for numerous reasons. I also know that you as board members do not control the location that you have this school. It is controlled only by the state, and I know that I think we need 2 schools because of the transportation problem. However, if we must live in a state-controlled county, please consider how we are going to pay for this facility and the utilities that's there. Let's consider, for one thing, a federal grant that was free for solar energy for this building. And this solar energy is being used by West Virginia University for their outside parking lights now. They're getting ready to use that. We're going to have to put lighting all the way up that hill, all the way around that school to nowhere, because that's where we're going to have to place it. If we don't use lighting all the way up through and on this school, it's going to be broken in and vandalized every night over there in the country by itself, or you're going to have to hire somebody to stay there overnight. We get the same problem here, right in the middle of the city with the police. What do you think it's going to be over there if you don't do that? I suggest that if you have to go over there, that you use shoulder panels like they're doing at the university and use that. I know it's 5 minutes. I'm doing the best I can. Everybody else has talked. Give me a chance. Also, the West Virginia University is drilling their own gas well. Now, also, Glenville State has done this. As our illustrious president here can tell you, he was there when they did it. So they don't have to pay for gas. And you say, oh, no, we can't do that because we don't own the mineral rights. Well, let's say that the State Board of Education paid nearly, or almost about, $500,000 for this property. There's nothing to say we can't ask I.L. Morris to drill us a well up there and get the rights. I'm not sure who owns it. I'm like Mr. Armour. I'm not sure anymore who owned the property, because $200,000 in the financial statements to a different person than I thought that we owned it. Also, if it's the price, other alternatives in my vote is to locate the school at Letter Gap, or we can use the one at Glenville Elementary, that we can build another school at the White site, which is only going to cost us $60,000. We'd already had both of these core drilled. All the necessary accomplishments had already been done and approved by the state. Yet, it was never approved by anybody else. The site is located, and the price, as far as I'm concerned, was outrageous. If we must pay for the state's mistake for all these years, the board members should state their position and say, we don't agree with this. Now, the board members can ask the prosecuting attorney, Mr. Huff, to ask the opinion of the Attorney General and find out to see if we are legally supposed to have the Board of Education using our tax and revenue that's detrimental to our county and our students. And this comes into transportation law and other things. If this idea doesn't not want to consider about it, I say you apply for an injunction for the judge. And the judge.
You're way past your 5 minutes. I appreciate what
I
you
did
said.
this over and over at home and never went past 6 minutes.
Okay. Do I
Public's not allowed
hear
to
a
speak.
motion that we go into executive session?
Be
be under code 698-4-9.
They do that to me every time.
Okay. Hear a motion that we.
I make a motion.
Okay. Second? Okay. We're going into executive session.
In executive session, I also want Carrie Ann, Joe, and Kendra to sit in. And Ted, Should be on the call.